Max Verstappen's future at Red Bull hangs in the balance. Can the team deliver the story that keeps him loyal for life? With Mercedes circling and McLaren charging, the 2025 fight is just heating up. Red Bull faces mounting pressure to craft a fantastic story that convinces Max Verstappen to finish his Formula One career with the team, his agent has revealed. The reigning world champion has breathed new life into his 2025 campaign with back-to-back victories, sending a clear warning shot to championship leaders McLaren and their drivers. Just a few months ago, such a turnaround, and even the idea of Verstappen staying at Milton Keynes, looked highly unlikely. At the height of the European season, the Dutchman was heavily linked to a move to Mercedes, fueling one of the most talked-about rumours in the paddock. But with Formula One on the cusp of a sweeping new rulebook in 2026, Verstappen ultimately chose stability, sticking with Red Bull through the uncertainty. The team itself is in a state of transformation, under new leadership with team principal Laurent Mekies and preparing to debut its own power unit in collaboration with Ford. Verstappen's manager, Raymond Vermeulen, will be watching closely to see how the dust settles, ready to judge which team cracks the code of F1's new era best. Everything could change next year with the new regulations, he told De Telegraph. So it's better to wait and see how things develop and who is where. Based on that, you can then look further ahead. This is nothing new, you know. In 2016, we moved from Toro Rosso to Red Bull, and later from Renault to Honda in terms of engines. Those are all moments when you think, what's going to happen now? Those are developments that the three of us, Max, Jos, Verstappen, and I, are constantly monitoring. And Max ultimately has the final say. It would be a fantastic story if he drove his entire Formula One career for Red Bull, but that will only happen if he has the equipment to win. The F1 rumor mill is in overdrive, spinning countless tales about which teams are thriving or faltering in their push toward 2026. Red Bull has been singled out more than once, with whispers of struggles and lowered expectations tied to its inexperience in building power units from scratch. Even Verstappen's manager, Raymond Vermeulen, has conceded that 2026 may be a challenging season for his driver. Still, he was quick to stress that it would be unfair to single Verstappen out. Every team and driver faces the same looming uncertainty as the sport heads into its most radical reset in years. Yes, that's possible. But that could also apply to others, he said. It would have been a huge gamble if he had signed a contract somewhere else for next year. There are no guarantees whatsoever. Everyone is making predictions, but they are all assumptions. Next year, it's not just about the engine, but also about the chassis. And which people will be recruited here? What impact will that have? It's a kind of puzzle you're putting together. Hence the conclusion that it's better to stay for at least another year. Max wants to win more championships in the future. He's not done yet in that regard, but he is dependent on the equipment. So I think 2026 will be a very important year, which will determine where his future lies in Formula One. Pushing to the brink of lap records at the Nürburgring in a Ferrari GT3, Max Verstappen's off-weekend adventures might be brushed off by Helmut Marko as a great passion. But to McLaren, they'd simply scream risk. Fresh off qualifying for his Permit A during the gap between the Italian and Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Verstappen wasted no time jumping into GT3 competition at the legendary Nordschleife. His debut? A victory naturally. Starting third on the grid, he carved through the field, stretched out a commanding 62-second lead, and handed the car to teammate Chris Lulam, who sealed the win. Even against the backdrop of the Nürburgring's fearsome green hell reputation, Red Bull threw its full support behind Verstappen's side quest, underscoring just how far the team will go to back its star. I think it's great that a Formula One driver who has many obligations besides racing, simulator, marketing, and PR appointments is still taking the time for something like this with such enthusiasm, Red Bull Motorsport advisor Helmut Marko told RTL. The Nürburgring and the Nordschleife are, of course, something that fascinates every racer. At a time when our car was not competitive, it was his great passion. Now both are working. Red Bull may be happy to grant their world champion the freedom to chase his passions, so long as Formula One remains his top priority, but not every team would be so lenient. And let's be clear, the Nordschleife is a gamble. Former strategist turned Sky F1 pundit Bernie Collins even posed the question to her colleagues. If Verstappen were locked in a championship fight against McLaren's duo, would Red Bull still be so relaxed about his high-risk Nürburgring adventures? I had one thought on this at home on the weekend. Obviously, over the winter, a lot of teams prevent drivers from going skiing or snowboarding or mountain biking or any of these things that could potentially injure themselves, said the former Aston Martin strategist. Well, like it literally says on the pass, motorsport is dangerous, like driving around the Nordschleife in a slower car. So, if he were racing for the World Championship, if Red Bull were racing for the Constructors' Championship, it should be a slightly different decision. I think Max is a great driver, but it's like any of us driving on the road at home. You can't be responsible for the guys around you. A big accident could happen at any time. So it's a risk. I don't know if that's the engineer in me talking. It's a gamble that ex-F1 driver Karun Chandhok is convinced McLaren would never allow, especially with both of its drivers firmly entrenched in the title fight. If it's Oscar or Lando, absolutely it's not worth the risk, he said. But I think you also have to think of the characters. I think Fernando or a Max, they get energized by driving all the time. Again, it's a bit like when people were saying about Lewis going to all these places and fashion shows, and Toto used to say, well, it's what makes him happy. And a happy Lewis is a faster Lewis. And I think it's just understanding who you've got and absolutely playing that risk-reward game. Yuki Tsunoda has made it clear. Red Bull isn't writing off the 2025 season. In fact, he's fully behind Max Verstappen's charge for a fifth consecutive world title. The Japanese driver's own resurgence, set against Verstappen's run of a P2, 2 poles and back-to-back wins, has drawn attention to one key factor: Red Bull's latest floor upgrade, rolled out in Monza. With rivals already shifting much of their focus toward 2026, Tsunoda believes the timing could play into Red Bull's hands. For him, the door is still open for Verstappen and the Austrians to close out 2025 on a high and perhaps even seal a historic fifth straight championship. I think teams are pushing a lot in terms of this, upgrades and everything, and trying to secure some milliseconds on every corner, which is very important, Tsunoda said. I think definitely we are more confident in the coming races to perform better, so I'm sure we're not giving up with this season, especially securing the Drivers' Championship for Max. So I'll try to extract performance as much as possible from the car that I have, and also at the same time for some races, if I can support him, that would be good. As F1 hurtles toward its biggest reset in 2026, Verstappen's path remains uncertain. But with Red Bull still in the hunt, his fifth title and long-term future promise high drama ahead.